Thank you everyone for joining us today for our webinar, Investing in Advocacy, How to Conduct an Apartment Tour with an Elected Official. We're going to go ahead and get started today. My name is Kathleen Gamble, Director of Political Affairs at NAA, and I am joined by Greg Brown, Senior VP of Government Affairs, and Carol Roper, Director of Public Affairs. If you guys have any questions today, please feel free to use the meeting chat, and we'll see the questions and go ahead and answer. Also, if you are not muted, please go ahead and mute your phone lines. Building a relationship with your member of Congress is one of the most important aspects of advocacy you can do. Conducting an apartment tour is always one of the best ways to build this relationship. Doing a tour increases the visibility of NAA and the apartment industry, builds and solidifies relationships with legislators, establishes yourself as a knowledgeable source in the industry. Congress spends half of their time in Washington, D.C., and the other half in their home districts, known as congressional recesses. Typically, these occur once a month for about a week, except for the month of August, when they have the entire month to spend time with their constituents. This is the time that we are asking you to invite your member of Congress to tour your apartment community. Conducting your apartment tour for an elected official isn't as daunting as it sounds. Let's take this one step at a time. In planning your apartment tour, be sure to determine your objective for the visit. To build a relationship with a member of Congress and to give an overview of the apartment industry. Be sure to invite the member of Congress in writing at least 1 month out. Be sure to include dates and times, location, and number of employees. Follow up with the Legislators Office 7 to 10 days after the invitation was sent. Once the date and time is confirmed, be sure to notify your employees of the visit. Since August is just around the corner at the end of this week, actually, please don't fret and think that you've missed the boat in getting your member to visit. There's still plenty of time. Please notify NAA Government Affairs staff of the date and time of your tour, as well as any company leaders or other industry leaders that may be able to participate. Be sure to work with the Legislators Office to work out the details of the visit. This can include photography. Is it allowed during the tour? Can we publish these photos in our newsletter? Can we issue a press release of the visit? Offer a timeline of the visit. A good timeline starts with a welcome and introduction that lasts 5 to 10 minutes, tour of the community, about 15 minutes, and a meet and greet with the residents and constituents, about 10 minutes. Be sure to provide the Legislators Office with background information on your community or company as well as the industry. In planning your tour, be sure to pick your tour guide with care, someone who is friendly and knowledgeable of the community. Most of the time, this will be your property manager or the owner. Map out your tour ahead of the time. Where will you start and end the tour? What apartment will you feature? What amenities will you highlight? Be sure that everything is prepared ahead of time for safety and rehearse the day before. Now that you have it all planned out, it's time to conduct the tour. The following tips will help you achieve all of your objectives while conducting the tour. Start the tour in the leasing office with welcome and introductions. Be sure to include your top company leaders and/or association leaders. As you move through the community, be sure to give background and issue points along the way. Hopefully, some residents will be utilizing the facilities during your tour. This can include your residents walking the dog, using the gym, pool, or community room. Also, be sure to introduce the legislators to any employees along the way. Perhaps you have a maintenance person working on an apartment during your tour. Finally, conclude with a meet and greet with residents and employees in the community room. This is a great opportunity for photos and the legislator to get to know the constituents. Think of a legislator as a prospective resident. What would you feature on a property tour to a prospective resident? What amenities would you include? The fitness center, pool, community room, green space, landscape, pet-friendly, and your maintenance guide.
A critical part of the tour, of course, is we want you, this is Greg Brown, by the way, excuse me, want to try to highlight some issues of importance to the industry. This is a great opportunity to not only educate your member of Congress about the community in which they're touring, but also hit a couple of issues of importance to the industry more broadly. So we're at that part of the presentation. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Now, Kathleen covered a little bit about the apartment overview, so it's always good to give them a sense of the community that they're touring. Is this an affordable property? Is it a conventional property? Is it a combination of those two things? Do you predominantly serve seniors, families, singles, anything else about the property that's unique? Anything around energy efficiency or specific amenities that are unique for the community that you want to highlight for them, but really get them sort of acquainted with what makes this property unique. The other thing you can talk about in this sort of area is the local apartment market. If you want to tell them a little bit about vacancy rates or absorption rates or things about, how is the local market doing? Is it a hot market? Is it a quiet market? Is it kind of in the middle? Just give them a feel for that. Finally, talk about how many people are employed on the property. Kathleen mentioned that you definitely want to introduce them to any employees that you meet along the way of your tour, but you also want to tell them a little bit about who works there, what their jobs are, how they function together. This is all part of that sort of introduction to how the industry works and how a typical property works. Now, of course, a big area that we like to talk about with apartments is economic impact. We like to talk about how the apartment industry contributes to the national economy, to the local economy. We have talking points on in our toolkit, our apartment tour toolkit, congressional recess toolkit, on our website, which will give you lots of good information about the economic impact of apartments. So you can, things like how many Americans rent their housing. That's 106 million Americans, or over a third of our population, rent their home, whether it's an apartment home or a single-family home. If you want to drill down a little bit further on apartments specifically, and those with 5 units or larger, then you're talking about 17.7 million households. And then finally, you want to get into the economic impact information specifically. So there's data about how much apartments and their residents contribute to the national economy, which is over $1 trillion. And then a little bit about how many jobs are supported. That's 25.4 million jobs are supported by the apartment industry nationally. So this is sort of that economic impact information. Now we have talking points and a fact sheet on this information on our website, so you want to definitely download those before the tour, acquaint yourselves with those. But we also have, if you go to weareapartments.org, there's all sorts of good economic impact information on that site as well. So you can find your state and download a fact sheet that'll tell you exactly how much money and how many jobs are supported by the apartment industry in a particular state. You can also get information on each congressional district. So you're going to be giving a tour to a member of Congress from that particular district. They'll tell you how many people rent in that district and other good information that you can share with them. So that's on economic impact. Now, of course, there's also legislative issues that we want you to try to cover, especially during this upcoming congressional recess period. 2 issues in particular. And again, as I go through these, don't feel like you have to take notes crazily trying to get all this down. The talking points and fact sheets are all on our website. You can download those at any point. So our first issue is extending the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act, or TRIA, as it's usually called. For those of you not familiar with TRIA, essentially what this is a program created following the events of 9/11, and it basically provides a federal backstop or a federal sort of like reinsurance for terrorism insurance coverage in the country. So right now, without the federal government's support, terrorism risk insurance or insurance against acts of terrorism would not be available to the private market. So we need this federal backstop to be able to ensure that we have that kind of coverage. Now, this program, since it was first created after 2001, has been very successful and hasn't cost the taxpayers $1. But it's very important, because without terrorism coverage, most in the multifamily industry, depending on where you are, would be in violation of the covenants you have with your lenders. So you have to have terrorism coverage. Many people have it, and they don't even know it because it's wrapped up into other policies. But regardless, this is a critically important program. And right now, Congress is grappling with the extension of this program. And so on our website, again, there's some very specific talking points about where we stand in that process. But the important part for you is to emphasize how important TRIA is to our industry and how it's important that the Congress extend the program. And again, our fact sheet and talking points will give you specifics about where we stand on that issue and your specific message to get across to that member of Congress. Now, the second issue is something that I'm sure will strike close to home to many of you, and that is a proposal from the Environmental Protection Agency to expand the scope of the Clean Water Act. Essentially, right now, Obviously, the Clean Water Act has done a lot in the last 40 years to protect the quality of our nation's water resources. And in this area, the Environmental Protection Agency and the Army Corps of Engineers share jurisdiction, and they have together issued a rule which would revise how waters of the United States of America are defined. And basically that definition, to keep it simple, the change in that definition would have a dramatic impact on permitting at the state and local level, and it would expand the role of the federal government in what has traditionally been a state and local process. This rule is very broad, and it would everything from municipal separate stormwater sewers to wetlands to maintenance stormwater ponds, roadside ditches would all be considered now part of waters of the U.S. and thus would be subject to extremely expanded federal regulation. So again, this proposal would have impacts on our industry, of course, and it would make the cost and the time that it takes to get approval and development of new apartment construction significantly more complicated, and it would affect us obviously in a negative way. So these federal water permits, for those of you who have not experienced this, they can take years to obtain. And there's actually a backlog right now of about 15,000 to 20,000 permits. So that's without this new rule being established. Now there are various reasons why we think this rule is a bad idea and why it shouldn't be implemented in the first place, all of which are on the talking points and the fact sheets that you can get from our website. But that's sort of an overview of the issue. So our two big legislative issues are, the messages for you are, TRIA is very important to the industry. We need that program extended because it will expire at the end of this year, and so Congress needs to extend that program. And secondly, Congress needs to oppose this proposal from the EPA and the Corps of Engineers to expand the reach of the Clean Water Act, because it would have negative impacts on permitting at the state and local level, and thus on the ability of the apartment industry to build all those apartment units that we need to build in the next decade. Now, you never know when's a good opportunity to bring up issues like this, but most members of Congress will probably ask you at some point, what are the issues of importance to your industry? So that's the perfect opportunity, and you should jump on it to raise these issues with them. But if they don't do that, just find another place in the tour. There's going to be a moment when you're not talking about something, how the property operates, you're not interacting with an employee or a resident, and that's a perfectly legitimate opportunity to say, there's a couple of issues I'd love just to visit with you about or share with you while we're going from point A to point B. And that's the place when you can do that. And a good thing to always do in this area is you get your point across, share with them some of the information, and then tell them you'll follow up with the appropriate staff person either at home or in Washington. And you can get them the fact sheets on these two issues and any other information that they need. And most importantly, if they ask you a question and you don't know the answer, all you say is, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll get you the information you need. You never want to try to answer a question you don't know. Most of us, me included, feel pressure to have all the information, but that's not your job. Your job is just to share with them a little perspective on these issues and what our main points are, and if they need more information, you tell them to follow up. And you let one of us know here at NAA, and we'll make sure and close that loop with them. So, again, a critical part of your tour is to take an opportunity to share this information on these issues, and again, we have resources on our website to help you do that. Kathleen, back to you.
Thanks so much, Greg. Once your tour is concluded and you've talked about the apartment overview as well as shown your great features in your apartment community, be sure to follow up with your legislator. We have some great activities or items to build on the relationship that you just established during your tour. One of these is very basic and simple thank you note to your legislator. Everyone loves getting pieces of mail, and legislators are no exception. Also, along with your thank you note, please be sure to email the photos taken during the tour, especially if your legislator's office has agreed to post any of them on their newsletter or if they've allowed you to post them in your newsletter. So in conclusion, just conducting an apartment tour for an elected official is one of the best ways to build your relationship. So a quick summary of the things that you need to do to get this rolling. One is identify your member of Congress, notify NAA Government Affairs with the details of the tour, invite your member of Congress in writing, follow up with them 7 to 10 days later, and make sure your community is compliant with all the regulations. In addition, we have materials that we can prepare for you or that you can download from NAA website to give to the legislators to take. Be sure to take photos, and as noted, send a thank you note along with photos if you're going to send a snail mail, and share your success stories with NAA so others can follow your lead. And if you have any more questions for us or need more information, please don't hesitate to contact any of us and go on our website for more information and to download the Congressional Recess Program Toolkit. Thank you so much for joining us, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us.